Hi, this is Mike Steger with Promethean PAC, and today we have a special interview with the candidate for Michigan State House District Number 2, Ron Kokinda. Now, the reason for the interview, besides Promethean PAC having endorsed Ron, and Ron having been a longtime collaborator of Lyndon LaRouche, is that this campaign, this district, has implications really beyond the district itself. It has implications for the kind of coalition Trump has built over the last 8 years, implications for the new Republican Party that is in the process of forming, the kind of political realignment in the country. It also has very clear implications for the race to win the majority of the Michigan State House. Ron, I want to welcome you to the interview today. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Mike. Thanks. Great to be here.
Excellent. Okay, Ron, why don't we start with a basic sense of why you're running this campaign. This is the second time you've run, but why don't you give us a sense of the main reasons you're running?
Well, I started this campaign with the idea to help Trump win Michigan. And as I got further into the campaign and discussions with people who have run campaigns, it became clear that the best way to do that was, in this particular district, was to run on the issues. But this came in a broader context because I went to Milwaukee. I was an alternate to the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, and I helped nominate Trump and pass the platform. And that was something that was a very big deal. That was really a revolution in terms of the shift that was going on in the Republican Party. This new platform is quite something. It's Trump's platform. It's Trump's policy. And of course, all the Democrat lies that Trump was behind Project 2025 were just that, were lies. And this is his platform. This is dedicated to the forgotten men and women of America. It states explicitly that the Republican Party is the party of industry, manufacturing, infrastructure, and the working man. So we took a different tack. Rather than running straight up as a Trump Republican or America First Republican or even just as a Republican. We wanted to bring the issues to this district. In other words, put issues before the people in this district where they could decide where their interest really lay, rather than being a knee-jerk out of habit voting Democrat. That was the context of it. And one thing to understand in this district is considered a very safe Democratic seat. This district hasn't had a Republican office holder for, who knows, the Dingle dynasty was 80 years. There's probably been at least 80 years since there's been a Republican office holder in the area. The Democrat incumbent basically thinks they own the seat. They consider it safe. If you were to hold an election in the district, no candidates, no issues, the Democrats would be expected to win this by 13 points. In other words, it's a D plus 13 district. So we start with a very uphill battle. But when we started looking at the district in terms of very routine type issues, one thing we found was that there's a big swath of voters in the district who are not tied to the party. In other words, they don't routinely pull a party lever. A lot of them routinely vote Democrat, but they are not party line voters. In other words, they're volatile independents. There's a very strong independent streak. And what we found is that these swath of independent voters vastly outweigh what we would call the party line pullers, the hard Democrats and the hard Republicans. They vastly outweigh the hard Dems and the hard Republicans combined. We are running our campaign on the issues addressing this great middle ground. In this context, the Republican Party has very clearly staked itself out as a new party. It defines itself more as the party of Lincoln and the party of the working man. So these are our issues. We began running this campaign to win over those voters. And of course, they've been subjected to the last 8 to 9 years of intense psychological warfare in the media, attacks against Trump of one shape or another. And we had to figure out a way to get under that, get under the Trump derangement syndrome, where people could begin to look at where their interests lie. And so that's been our campaign.
Let me ask you a question on the kind of demographic makeup of your district. What's your district look like? You said it's a plus 13 kind of Democrat district, but what's the general demographics of it?
Well, it's interesting. It's a lot of the groups that are making the shift away from the Democratic Party toward the Republican Party, toward Trump. It's Arab Americans in one of my cities in the district. My district includes 3 cities plus part of another. It includes the cities of Allen Park, Lincoln Park, Melvindale, and 5 precincts in northern Southgate. And Melvindale, for example, is heavily Arab American. Some people have suggested it's now approximately half of the vote in Melvindale. These are largely ethnic Yemeni Arab Americans. It also has a percentage of blacks, not heavily, not like Detroit, but it is a significant percentage. And significant percentage of Hispanics, particularly in cities like Lincoln Park, which a couple of years back was already 25% officially Hispanic. I think it's greater than that. I think it's probably pushing toward 30% or above. And it has a tremendous number of working people, union and non-union, black and white, Hispanic, Arab Americans. In terms of the shift among these demographics, we're kind of like, this district is like ground zero for all the groups that are making the shift away from the Democratic Party, leaving the Democratic Party.
And where do you find the greatest support? Do you find it in some of the more like upper middle class or more working class neighborhoods?
More working class areas. Yeah, the upper middle class, that is our biggest problem. Liberal Republicans, that is still an organizing effort to keep them in the Republican Party. I think one of the most interesting aspects is the effect that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard are having on the Democrats 65 and up who remember the John Kennedy era. I know Robert Kennedy Jr. at his talk in Dearborn, he talked about his discussion with Trump. He asked Trump, when you say make America great again, he asked Trump, when was America great? And Trump responded, the John Kennedy era. Robert Kennedy may have discussed this in other places, but he did it in Dearborn. And Democrats of that age who remember the Kennedy era, remember the Apollo program, this is having a profound effect in accelerating their thought process and thinking about whether they still belong in the Democratic Party, which they know has become quite crazy on a lot of issues. The economy, social issues. They don't like what the Democratic Party has become. And that discussion that Robert Kennedy had with Trump in referring to John Kennedy is resonating among these layers in particular.
That's great.
I haven't had the experience of these discussions with other age groups as much, but I've had a number of conversations with people in that age group where they say they start off as Democrats, but they finally admit they're very happy to see Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in particular aligning with Trump.
Right.
So
that, I think that brings up, you mentioned some of the issues, and that's a big part of what you've been campaigning on, not so much the personalities, but the actual issues at stake. So why don't you give us a sense, what are the issues you're really focusing on?
first of all, energy. I've put out several videos. And I should say right off the bat, there's been about 1 million views of my videos. We're adding videos at the rate of 1 or 2 a week, and we'll continue to do so into the election on November 5th. So far, there's been 1 million views of these, which is basically dwarfing the rest of the state house campaigns in the state. This is quite extraordinary. This is very unusual to have the number of views that we do in one house district like mine. First of all, energy. That was the first video we did. And I stated quite clearly that we need all our energy sources. We need natural gas. We need clean coal. We need oil, fossil fuels. We need nuclear. And we need to get onto a fusion future. The cost of energy in the state means that industries are leaving, and there's no industry that would look favorably at moving to Michigan with the energy costs in this state. These green mandates are killing the state. The federal ones are threatening auto, which was my second commercial. My second video was on the auto sector. The green mandates are crushing auto. The last big investment Ford made, it was somewhere between $10 and $13 billion. They went south. They went to Tennessee and Kentucky to make the investment there. The energy cost there is a little over 5 cents a kilowatt hour. It's over 8 cents a kilowatt hour here. That was a big factor. Another was infrastructure, the roads, horrible shape, flooding. Lincoln Park in my district can't get money to solve some of these flooding issues. The rains we've been having hits them all the time. The police, proper funding for the police. The city of Melvindale in my district is under horrible situation. They can't get the money for police cars. They get into a high-speed chase recently. Their police car broke down. They had to pull over to the side of the road. They can't get officers for the city. And when crime goes up, the communities, they start falling apart. You see all these serious problems. And one of the bills that my opponent voted for was a bill to make it legal for men, yes, men, to breastfeed in public. So we have these very serious problems on our hands, and the state legislature is involved in these types of votes. And it's just insanity.
So did that bill mention who the man's going to be feeding?
My opponent, he's a straight party line voter. He's just there to vote as the party leadership tells him to. 586 votes in the last session, 586 votes. He did just as the leadership told him to vote. And it's the progressive wing of the party. The latest thing, there was a bill to mandate that teachers and schools had to keep parents informed of critical decisions involving their children. He voted against that bill. And not all Democrats did. Some of the Democrats were not willing to go that far, but he did. He voted against that. He's voted for bills to allow boys to participate in girls' sports, for boys to use girls' bathrooms. And a lot of the people in my district, for example, the Arab American community, feel very strongly. We protect minors from all sorts of things until they're adults. And this genderization, getting involved in sexual changes, that's the type of thing that schools should not be encouraging. Those type of discussions should not be being encouraged. Kids are there to get an education. We protect them, minors, until they're 18. After they're 18, they can make their own decisions, what they want to do. But kids are kids, and they need to be protected, and parents have to be involved in these types of decisions. That message is resonating very strongly in the district. So it's a question of economy, whether we can rebuild the state, rebuild this region downriver. We have to preserve, we have to protect the auto industry. Look, it's a fight in rebuilding our economy and rebuilding our industry. We have to be fighting for jobs where one job can support a family. When you do that, and you've got the equivalent of one parent that can spend time dedicated to raising the children, doesn't have to be the mother, the father, doesn't have to be all one parent, but the equivalent of one parent between the two of them, dedicated to raising the kids. A lot of our social problems fall by the wayside. Crime, delinquency, the education problem, these sorts of things solves a lot of the social problems. But we have to fight for those jobs. We have to fight for that industry. We have to have abundant energy, cheap energy. We have to lower the cost of that and improve an infrastructure where industry wants to come into the state. And that's what Trump talked about when he spoke to the Detroit Economic Club. If I look at what Trump is talking about in terms of getting this economy humming, I see my role as, if I could win this district, helping get Trump's economic program moving in Michigan, where we can rebuild this economy. You know, how much it's boggles the mind how much Michigan has shrunk. We used to have 19 congressmen in this state. We've lost population where every year, every decade, every census for the last 60 years, every 10 years, we've lost another congressman. We're down to 13. That tells you how much population we've lost, how much industry we've lost. People are not staying in the state. And there's some very crazy people in this state that thinks that we could survive on finance, healthcare, and higher education, that we could do without industry and manufacturing. And I think those people are absolutely nuts. We need manufacturing, we need industry, we need to bring it back into the state in a big way. Whether we can catch my opponent was always a question. We think we had a good shot at doing that, but we knew even if we fell short on November 5th, on Election Day, even if we fall short, we're going to have shifted a tremendous number of people as part of this process. And we estimate, our estimation is that we potentially represent the biggest potential swing for Trump, for the Republican Party, for the top of the ticket of any House district in the state of Michigan. If we were to win this district with no help from the Michigan Republican Party, the state party, that would be a bombshell. That would be an earthquake. To win this without any help from them and us pulling people, knowing how to move people from out of the Democratic Party, out of the habit of voting Democrat, into this vision for how to rebuild the state.
Well, that was awesome. That was an awesome, I think, overview and a sense of the potential in this Michigan State House District number 2, and how we mobilize, how candidates like yourself, whether it's city council, state house, state senate races, how they are today making a major impact to bring more people into the Republican Party, into the new Republican Party, into this political realignment, and what that means for what we can do to win the country back. So, Ron,
Well, if I were to win, I would say the question that will be on everyone's mind is, if he wins re-election, can he implement his program? That's really the question. That will be the fight. And of course, if I were to win this district, or even if I'm close in this district, the last election, it was like 62 to 38 in this district. If I even bring it close, it's going to have major implications. So that will give us a good starting point for winning the success of Trump's second term.
Mm-hmm. That's excellent. So, Ron, I think everybody out here listening to this, I'm sure many of them want to make sure you can win. I know you've got a dedicated army of volunteers and people out there door knocking. You've been door knocking for almost over a year now in terms of mobilizing your district and your constituents. How can people watching this, how can they back you up and support your campaign?
Money, first of all, go to my website, Kokinda, Kokinda, numeral 4, mi.com. And I would say anyone going to the website, they have to look at the media page. The videos that we put out, the one on the breastfeeding is funny. Not so funny in terms of what they're doing, but we try to put a little humor in it. All the programmatic topics are covered there. whatever they can spread. If they know people in my district, if they know organizations that could potentially overlap my district, that's important to get to. If they're within driving distance of my district, we can use on-the-ground volunteers for door knocking or literature distribution. My volunteers have done a terrific job in this state. Some of them have been door knocking almost as much as I have, and they've done a tremendous job. I can't speak highly enough. But that is still ongoing. That will continue right up to Election Day. We need people at the polls with our signs on Election Day to bring my name in front of the last-minute voters, people who are thinking about who to vote for at the last minute. So that, our effort at the doors, at getting literature out to the homes, and the digital media campaign, that's going to continue right up to Election Day.
Oh, that's awesome. Ron, a big shout out. Congratulations for running such an intense campaign. And hopefully over the next days, we can grind it out and we can see a real victory. So I appreciate you taking the time today. Good luck with your campaign and any closing remarks you have for the listening audience.
Just do something. Get out there and be active in some way. Read the Republican platform. Make yourself aware of it. Get out there and organize. Talk to people. Whatever way, shape, or form you can get active, be active. Do something.
That's awesome. All right. This is a war we can win. Promethean PAC is proud to have endorsed Ron Kokinda, and we're going to be out there fighting for this country and for the election of Donald Trump. So everyone have a great night and a great afternoon, and stay tuned to the Promethean PAC and Promethean Action website for further updates.
Thank
Thanks.
you, Mike.
Thank you, Ron. Bye.